used to have sleep problems when I was stressed because of school or when my anxiety was bad. This one time when I was 13, I had just left a bad relationship. It was scary because my ex threatened to hurt me if I left him. He was older than me and lied about his age. He knew where I lived and had guns. The relationship was bad and I was always scared. Thankfully, he eventually left me alone. But about 5 weeks after we broke up, I started having sleep paralysis. At first, I couldn't move and it was hard to breathe. Then, it got worse. I started hearing strange noises in my room, like taps and knocks on the walls and in my closet. It made me really uncomfortable being alone in my room. My closet is the only room with a panel to the crawl space in the ceiling, which made me even more uncomfortable sleeping there. I always felt like someone was watching me, especially in the closet. A few times I thought I saw a figure race across the closet door. I'd tell my parents, but they'd say I watched too many scary videos or stayed up too late. Maybe they were right, but it didn't change the scary dream I had. One night, I woke up during sleep paralysis. I couldn't move except for my eyes. I usually sleep soundly, so something must have woken me up. I noticed the fan, usually pointing at me, was off. I thought I had turned it on before bed. Maybe I forgot, being so tired. I saw that my closet door was open a bit, even though I hadn't opened it before bed, because I was scared of it. My heart raced, and I could hear it. I looked around the room, searching for anything that might be inside. Then, I smelled something familiar, but scary. It was my ex-boyfriend's cologne mixed with a dead animal smell. I was terrified, thinking he had gotten into my house. As I cried and hyperventilated, I heard a thud in the corner. I forced myself to look and saw a tall, shadowy figure. I tried to scream but couldn't. The figure turned to face me slowly. It was hunched over, covered in dark cloth, with bony hands and long, claw-like nails. I tried hard to see the creature clearly, but it didn't have a face, which scared me the most. I was almost crying as it came closer, smelling like death and my ex-boyfriend. The smell was overwhelming, and I felt like screaming and vomiting. The creature climbed onto my bed and grabbed my throat, just like my ex-boyfriend used to scare me. I could feel its hand tightening around my throat, just like it was really happening. Then, it started speaking in a low, strange language that sounded like a bad imitation of English. The room suddenly became very cold, and I could see my breath. I felt like I might faint when the creature stopped and walked back into my closet, closing the door as if nothing had happened. Finally able to move, I checked my phone. It was 2:45 a.m. I jumped out of bed, still crying, and ran to tell my parents. They were mad at first, but when they saw me crying, they got worried. My dad asked what happened, and I told him everything. He tried to calm me down, saying I imagined it, but then he saw the marks on my neck from the creature's hand. He got concerned, grabbed his gun, and checked the closet, but there was nothing there. He still didn't want to talk about it, but I could tell he was scared, and he believed me a little bit more after that dream. My dad returned to my room and noticed the same smell I did. I didn't explain because I was afraid he'd dismiss it, but his smell confirmed it wasn't just a dream. I've never believed in the paranormal, but this felt like a real encounter with something demonic. It used my ex-boyfriend's smell and his abusive behavior to scare me. I've had another sleep paralysis episode since, and I hope it never happens again. As I write this, sitting on my bed, I still feel like I'm being watched. This story is about my grandmother's aunt from many years ago. My grandmother, who came to America as a refugee, told me this tale. There might be some language and cultural barriers, but I've always been intrigued by it. My family is from Laos, a small country in Southeast Asia. During the Vietnam War, there was another conflict in Laos called the Secret War. The CIA wanted to stop support for Vietnamese fighters, thinking supply lines ran through Laos. The secret war started with secret operations in each village or town. My grandmother's aunt, whom I'll call Anna, met an American soldier on the outskirts of her village. They became romantically involved, exchanging gifts and dreaming of a future together. Anna was smitten with this charming mystery soldier. One week, the American soldier didn't return, and Anna was devastated. Usually, when someone disappeared from the area, it was because of the war. People were dying every day, and gunfire could be heard from distant hills or clashes along the border. Despite this, Anna hoped he was alive and waited for him every day on the outskirts of the village. As the secret war intensified, there were constant bombings of the jungle and villages. Nowhere was safe. My grandmother described seeing women running through the trees with babies trying to escape the blast. The scenes were haunting. Those caught in the crossfire realized there was no escaping the bombings. The American military used tactics known as carpet bombings, where planes dropped loads of missiles, destroying large areas of the country and wilderness. The CIA believed there were tunnels and supply caches in Laos and decided to destroy them. When the situation became dire, the villagers had few options for survival. They didn't know about the tunnels, but they knew about caves in the hills and mountains where they could hide. They learned the bombing schedules and timing between the sound of planes and explosions, allowing them to plan brief periods to leave the caves and gather belongings from the village. But they always returned quickly to the safety of the caves, especially avoiding leaving at night when soldiers were active and bombers flew consistently. One week, the situation became even worse. The ground shook for 5 days straight. Gunfights in the jungle intensified, with less time between them, and sometimes lasting for hours. The only sounds they heard between gunfire were the screams of the wounded and dying. That night, they crawled deep into the cave where the air was clean and heavy. They used lanterns and candles to light up the walkways and crawl spaces near the entrance. But as they went deeper, the darkness grew. My grandmother and her family could see shadows of people approaching. It was very late, and everyone else was sleeping, when my grandmother heard something echoing through the cave. She opened her eyes and saw a flickering light at the entrance, about 30 feet below her. The sound of footsteps or something similar continued. There were 20 or 30 villagers sleeping nearby, piled together for warmth and security. In the dark unknown, my grandmother didn't wake anyone up because she thought the shuffling or scraping sound would do it, but no one stirred. She waited alone, scared. Then she heard a voice muttering. At first she couldn't make out the words, but soon she recognized the odd, familiar voice of an American. It was the soldier Anna loved, mumbling brokenly. He kept saying, "I'm back for you," over and over, each time in a different tone, sad, happy, excited, scared, and more. It sounded like he was practicing his speech while moving through the chasm. Sometimes there was laughing or chatting between the words. Grandma grew terrified as the voice approached. She closed her eyes, froze, and waited. It was too late to wake everyone up, and there were no weapons in the cave for protection. Something shambled out of the tunnel. The rock face revealed something larger than a man, blocking out the light from the chasm. It grew taller and wider with each step, its massive silhouette looming closer. My grandmother watched through her eyelashes as it approached. She could hear it breathing as it neared. She closed her eyes and prayed. It touched her shoulder, its big, heavy hand resting there for a moment. Then it slid down her arm, revealing a huge, furry paw like that of a cat. She felt its soft pads and retractable claws. Before she could react, Anna stirred in the darkness and silently stood up. There was an exchange of words between Anna and the creature. Then they both moved toward the exit of the cave system, led by the creature with the soldier's voice. My grandmother watched in horror as Anna disappeared into the cave hollows. No one ever saw Anna again. This incident deeply affected my family in Laos. Sympathy and assistance in searching were scarce due to the war, and Anna was assumed to be another casualty. My grandmother struggled with guilt for not being able to save Anna. She told the story regularly to honor her memory and to share our culture with us, the younger generation. We may never know what the creature was, but it seemed to want to be human, or perhaps it had once been one. We value your opinion in comment section. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.